let's talk about winning and losing trials. Are there fundamental principles and concepts that apply no matter the fact pattern, no matter the jurisdiction, that will ultimately put you in the best position to go win your next trial? Well, I posed that question and that overall concept to Eric Scramlin, the tactical attorney, and he says, yes, there's one concept, there's one tool, one strategy that you can implement in order to make or break your case. And to learn what that one thing is, you're going to need to keep watching. But just keep in mind, what you're about to see is just a snapshot of an interview with the full interview sliding above if you want to check it out. And as you watch, if you end up enjoying the video, be sure to hit the like button. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. With all that said, I hope you enjoy.
What are your thoughts on the story winning at trial? Like what is your view on the story and the keys to success at trial?
I'm a full-in believer on the story wins the trial. I think it's not the only factor. You do have to understand the rules of evidence, and you do have to present a polished case. So it's not just about the story, but I am a firm believer that because I told you I lost a first-degree murder trial, but there wasn't any question that the guy did it.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't tell a very good story,
Mm-hmm.
and there was some holes in that story. So the story wins. Ultimately, when you put 12 people in the box, they're up there just like, some people like to buy GM, some people like to buy Ford, some people like to buy Toyota. That's their brand. You got to sell yourself, your brand, and your story, and whatever. If the jury likes you and they're like, hey, they can trust you and they buy into that story, then you're going to win your case. So I think it's the most important thing. I always built, no matter if I had a simple, DWI case, there was still a story there. And the most important thing is to be able to tell it in a way that makes sense. You can't sell a bunch of BS to the jury either. You got to make sure you pick something that works. So it's huge. So as a prosecutor, most of my trials in that 100 trial chunk was narcotics prosecutions. That was what I did for a long time. So my story started from the beginning. I'd come into the courtroom way before the defense attorney, set up my laptop, have a big logo of the state of New Mexico on there, because I wanted to portray when the jurors came in that this is my courtroom,
Mm-hmm.
not the defendant's courtroom.
Mm-hmm.
And I would start my story in jury selection. I'd start talking about drugs, and if anybody here had a family member that went through the ravages of addiction and stuff, because depending on how the case was, I had to sell a certain story. People have this image of like drug dealers in a drug dealing trafficking case that they're going to be like, some rich guy, from Colombia who's like trafficking drugs.
Pablo Escobar,
the cartel. Yeah. Most of the time it was, unfortunately, it was addicts that were supporting their habits. So I had to be sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
But I also had the reality of what a drug dealer was. So I would bring that up in jury selection, even though I knew I wasn't going to weed out jurors or I wasn't going to eliminate somebody,
Mm-hmm.
because I knew it was going to be the ones that didn't say anything. They were going to end up in the jury anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to get my story out from the very beginning, and then that would transfer into the theme, which is always the first words out of my mouth in opening. I always tell attorneys, do not say, thank you for being here, ladies and gentlemen. Don't waste the opening moment. They don't want to be there. They got summons to be here.
Yeah.
Start with your theme right from the beginning. Don't waste time.
What is your style in the courtroom? I mean, because if anybody listens to the podcast, they'll hear you joke around, have fun. Does that bleed into your courtroom presence, or is it all business?
Yes. Well, one of the things you have to do is part of your preparation. You have to know and understand your audience.
Mm-hmm.
Me being a guy from Michigan coming to Southeast New Mexico, where it's 100% different culture down here. They have different crimes. It's blue collar oil field town. I had to learn and immerse myself in the community, because they're not going to listen to some white dude from Michigan who comes down here talking about this stuff. I had to become part of the community and understand who my audience was. So, and then I moved to northern New Mexico, where it was a 180
Mm-hmm.
from this conservative culture down here in Southeast New Mexico to a very liberal culture up there. And you have to know and understand your audience. So there's some cases, depending on the nature, where it'll be a little more serious tone.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes, if the moment was there, you try to lighten the mood a little bit. I did a trial. It's just like an aggravated assault where a guy pointed a gun because he was pissed off at some people. And the defense attorney grabbed the gun during a demonstration, and she's like pointing it at the jurors and the judge is like ducking and stuff and telling her not to do that. And she was arguing that the gun wasn't real because it was like a little 22.
Yeah, bold strategy.
So I'm like, why were you guys ducking in the jury if that's not a real gun? So you kind of seize the moment, and you don't want to overdo it. But again, you're telling a story and you want people to like you. So you have to kind of feel it. I'm always watching the jury. I'm not stuck on my notes. I'm always looking at them, seeing what they're doing, how they're responding to something. If I see a bunch of people falling asleep, if it's something technical, I got to get it in. I hurry up, get it in, and then I move on. And I try to jump to something to bring them back to me.